The reason why we're here today is we have all seen a recent push from lawmakers to raise the limit for owning firearms. We hear them calling for a repeal of the Second Amendment. We have witnessed the aftermath of what continues in gun-free zones. The only solutions being offered by some of those policymakers is to eradicate constitutionally protected rights that our nation was founded on. We have watched as law-abiding individuals have been vilified simply because they wish to have the means for self-protection. This is why we rally. Those of us who support our rights will not simply sit back and let our very rights be trampled on. The Second Amendment was adopted December 15, 1791. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah. Thankfully, we do have representation here in Kansas of policymakers that feel the same way that we do. And boy, do we have some amazing speakers lined up for you guys today. We've invited government officials and candidates from all parties, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. So those that are here today, speak their voices the loudest for the Second Amendment. Please make sure to vote in the primaries on August 7th. It is important that our voices be heard. So let's hear them now. Let me hear you holler. All right. So first up is Jess Theobald. Jess is Jeff Caldwell's Digital Communications Manager. He was a twice deployed Army veteran. Give it up. Woo. And he's a local business owner for nearly 12 years. He was born and raised in Wichita and is a proud supporter of Jeff Caldwell for Kansas governor. Jeff Caldwell has been involved in politics for over 10 years and has helped with dozens of campaigns. Jeff is passionate, driven, and motivated to move Kansas toward better times. Jeff Caldwell is running for governor to enhance the life and safety of all Kansans. He's tired of seeing crowds of people fill community rooms in Topeka, only to be overruled by a small handful of representatives that are against useful action. Caldwell desires to be your next governor of Kansas because the government and politicians have implemented economically stifling legislation and have time and time again refused to listen to our voice. So please welcome Jess Theobald.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me out. Jeff Caldwell is the Libertarian candidate. He is going to be on the ballot. We've already picked him. I'll be short and sweet because just as in the prayer, we believe the Second Amendment is your God-given right. The Constitution just reinforces your God-given right. When I was getting ready here today to kind of get ready and come out, I was trying to think, what firearm was I going to carry, and it took me quite a minute, and I'll never ever give my wife any crap anymore about where she wants to eat, how long it takes her to decide, because when I got in my safe, I couldn't pick, couldn't choose, tried on a few, and I went with the public defender. And I think that's important because too often we have candidates and people, unlike yourselves, saying they want to defend the Second Amendment, and we need to, or that they want to support the Second Amendment and not defend it. It's definitely under attack, and I think we need to start electing candidates and grouping people like yourself together. Thank you. Grouping people like yourself together to get people that defend the Second Amendment. So look forward to seeing you out on the ballot. Remember that the Second Amendment was never about hunting. It was never about defending your home. It was to keep tyranny at bay. So when the pull of the lever in the ballot box won't work, the pull of the trigger might. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jess, for sharing. Next up is The Voice of Reason. The Voice of Reason is a conservative talk radio show promoting truth, reason, and local activism. Live on 1480 AM or 102.5 FM, KQAMradio.com, or you can tune in at using the app from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. daily. Their mission is education, entertainment, and the advancement of the conservative movement. They expose the progressive movement in our community, our state, and our nation. They educate young adults on what true conservatism is and the urgency of defending constitutional principles. Kansas Rallies would like to welcome Andy with the voice of reason. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for coming out here. It's good to see activism, and it's good to see people actually want to show up. I know there's a lot of other things happening in the community with Riverfest and with some other stuff going on, but this is kind of important. As we got elections coming up, we got midterm elections coming up, we got primaries, and it's up to us to decide what's going to be represented and who's going to represent us when it comes to our local, statewide, and national government. So this is how we start it when it comes to activism. That's what we do on the radio. I don't know how many of you guys listen to the show, but there's examples day in and day out of individuals who just don't understand, number one, what the Second Amendment's actually all about. As we just heard, it's not just about hunting, but it's about the right for you to be able to protect yourself on a daily basis. They don't understand that. They don't get it. They think, oh, you can use your nice little 12-gauge shotgun, you can go hunting and have a little good time, and that's about it. Well, guess what? We just had a school shooting that used a shotgun. Are they going to start taking that away now? Because they're going to try, right? They're going to give it an attempt. They're actually getting exposed to where they understand that the only way that they're going to promote their agenda is to finally come out and admit they want to repeal the Second Amendment. And you've heard a former Supreme Court justice actually admit that, which is why doing something like this is more important than ever before, because never before have they openly admitted it. They've done it in the shadows before. They've tried to do it behind the scenes. Oh, you know what? You just don't need that many bullets in your magazine. You just don't need the really scary gun where we can attach a chainsaw to the side of it for some reason. Oh, you don't need it because, it looks really scary. There's the line, there's the shotgun, there's the really fast rapid one, there's the one with accessories, and it's kind of scary. You can't have the scary one, you can have the other ones. You can have the handgun, even though, as you know, handguns can be just as dangerous as anything else, which is why we use them to actually defend ourselves. I have a caller on the show that calls in every once in a while, actually from Australia. He listens online on the Facebook and on the TuneIn app, and he calls in and he says, you guys are so lucky because you actually get to defend yourself, because I didn't get an opportunity to do so. Living in Australia, as you know, they went door to door and literally rounded up all the firearms, and that's not okay. We're in one of the most unique nations on the face of the earth because we were founded on the principle of the right to life, liberty, and private property. And when they try and take our private property away, that's when we stand up, and that's the whole purpose of actually having the firearms. It's not just the protection of our home, it's not the protection of our families, it's not just the protection of what we have with our private property, but the private property of our liberties and our rights that we actually get to enjoy in the nation that no other nation on the face of the earth actually gets to enjoy. And that's why we get to make a difference and we actually get to have a say here. I've been watching lately on like Netflix. You guys watch like the Planet Earth and some of the other TV shows of like the animal kingdom? And if you believe in God-given rights, if you believe in natural rights, if you believe in evolution or Darwinism, whatever you believe in, there's always the animals, they always have a defense mechanism, right? If you watch the animal, their whole life, their whole purpose, their whole meaning is to reproduce and be able to find food, which is finding other animals, and defend off the other predators trying to get them as they're trying to survive. But they always have a defense mechanism. Why in the world, as humans, do we not have the right and the ability to actually have a defense mechanism against a predator coming after us? Whether it's another human being, whether it's an animal, or whether it's our own government. It doesn't make any sense. They want us to be the protected. For some reason, they feel that the government is going to protect us, that the protected class, and as long as we have a nice little piece of written legislation from the government, that they're going to have the protected class against us, and that then we can feel all safe and cozy and we can hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. We got some beautiful protesters back there. Hi. There you go. We get to actually set our own fate because no one else is going to do it. I learned at a very young age that unless you actually do it yourself, it doesn't get done, right? If you actually don't do a job in your backyard, it doesn't get done. If you actually don't go and actually get the chores done, then it doesn't get done. Your wife knows that very well, right? She's got the wife to-do list. If you don't do it yourself, it doesn't get done. If you don't go out and vote, it doesn't get done. If you don't go out and run for office, it doesn't get done. If you don't go out and actually make your voice heard with a rally like this to let people know that this is a top priority issue, then it doesn't get done, which is why something like this is so important. So thank you guys so much for coming out. By the way, when we come up to the elections, the midterm elections, with who's going to be representing you and I, it's important to know where they stand on these issues. So the ones that actually show up to rallies like this, the ones that actually show up to want to support this and rallies here and rallies all over the state and all over the nation, they're the ones that you need to remember that and support them when it comes to those elections, because that's extremely important. Because remember, David Hogg and all those left-wing progressives that are probably sitting there right now eating Tide Pods somewhere don't represent us. Thank you guys so much.
Give it up for the voice of reason. You guys are going to have to check that out. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. daily. All right. Thank you so much, Andy. All right. Our next speaker, he is on the Board of Trustees with the Kansas Chamber of Liberty, which supports and defends God's gift of liberty, principles of good government, and a resource for the small business community. Kansas Rallies would like to welcome Rob Wood to the mic.
All right. Is everybody a proud supporter of the Second Amendment here today? All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm happy to be here. Like she said, I'm Robert Wood from the Kansas Chamber of Liberty. I've been fighting on the Second Amendment here in Kansas for many, many years. Today, I'm going to have a little different speech than what you'll normally hear on gun rights. These rallies are great. I'm glad people are coming out here and expressing their right to bear arms, but sometimes it doesn't produce the solutions we want. Today, I'm here to talk about 13 words. One vital Kansas law and how we must follow and enforce them all if we want our rights to not be infringed. 13 words are key to enforcing our Constitution, securing our free states, and defending our rights from a powerful central government bent on destroying them. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Those are the 13 words that are the most important words in the Constitution. It is the enforcement clause. Your rights will be infringed if we do not follow those words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. These are the most important words in the Constitution after we the people. It holds within it the people's constitutional law enforcement, their ability to repel invasion, suppress insurrection, and most importantly, execute the laws of the Union. And it doesn't mean anything, excuse me, it's the only thing the Constitution deems as necessary. Nothing else, they said, was necessary. Our founders thought those 13 words were critical for us to defend our rights. What is the militia? It's everyone. You are the militia. It's every able-bodied male in this state. Our state constitution says in Article 8 that the militia is composed of all able-bodied males between 21 and 45, except those exempted by law. Chapter 48 of the state statutes further declares this when it describes the militia as those able-bodied male citizens prescribed and contemplated in Article 8 of the Constitution of this state and are not in the Kansas Army and Air National Guard. So why is the militia so important to our state and our rights? The Second Amendment was put in place as a defense against tyranny of abusive central power. It can be put very simply based on those most important 13 words. It is impossible by constitutional definition to have a free state without a well-regulated militia. The absence of a well-regulated militia in any state indicates it's not actually or can never be free. It was very clear from our founders what they meant for us and how to defend ourselves. It's a civil union of people coming together to defend themselves. How do we get this done? Well, let's not make this rally like every other pro-Second Amendment rally in the state and in our country. Let's make it more about standing up and declaring our rights. It is time we stop playing defense and we start playing offense. It's time that we enforce our rights and our Constitution. It's time for action and not just words. State Senator Dennis Pyle sent a letter to Governor Colyer in March requesting that we reestablish the Kansas State Guard. He also did this several years ago. KSRA former President Patricia Stone King and I talked to Governor Brownback several years ago about doing the same thing. Today we see massive threats of invasions happening on our southern border, foreign terrorist threats from factions, and massive domestic violence happening all around us. Today we must stand with Senator Pyle and demand that Governor Colyer reestablish the Kansas State Guard to repel invasion, suppress insurrection, and execute the laws of the Union. We must have units all over Kansas to come to the aid when we're in harm's way, whether it be natural disaster or human ones.
Absolutely.
So what do we do now? Well, you can form units in your communities and you can train. Contact Governor Colyer, request his assistance in reestablishing that Kansas State Guard or militia. Go to kansasstateguard.com and fill out our petition so that we can make that happen. It is, if we're going to have a free state, that has got to happen. All of us are responsible for our government. It's a self-government that we must restore. Today, Kansas is not a gun-free zone, which is awesome. Most places you can carry. You can open carry. You don't have to have a permit. But we're a militia-free zone, leaving ourselves unprepared for natural disasters and coordinated domestic and foreign threats. We are unprepared to defend ourselves against a central power that has shown itself to be lawless and abusive to the states and the people. It's time for the people to be responsible for their own self-government. It's time to stand against all threats to our liberty and the liberty of our neighbor. We must stop rallying and start mustering. That is going to be how we defend our rights, and we have to do that. The second thing I want to talk about today, it's been a year or two, just down the road here in the U.S. Courthouse, a couple of Kansas citizens were abused. We have a law called the Second Amendment Protection Act. They were following that law, and the feds came in and arrested them for following the law. And today they're felons stripped of their rights. Today I'm calling on Kansas law enforcement and courts and Trump and the federal agencies to support and defend the U.S. and Kansas constitutions and Kansas law, the Second Amendment Protection Act. The Kansas State Legislature doubled down on support of the Second Amendment Protection Act this year, with passage and signing into law of the retroactive suppressor fix amended into HB 2145. I'm calling on the Kansas courts and law enforcement agencies to immediately follow the Kansas Second Amendment Protection Act to stop any attempts by the ATF or any other federal agency from enforcing unconstitutional National Firearms Act on made in Kansas firearms and accessories. I am also calling on Governor Colyer and Kansas Attorney General Schmidt to support the Constitution and our Kansas law and to stand up and defend the rights of the citizens they serve.
Yes.
It's important that we support Kansas law. Shane Cox and Jeremy Kettler have suffered tremendous abuse for simply following this Kansas law, and we must stop any more federal agency or court abuse and fully protect and restore their right to bear arms in the state of Kansas, especially since the suppressor issue has been eliminated by the retroactive suppressor fix. I'm also calling on President Trump to make a states' rights agreement with Kansas on this issue and to write an executive order to call off federal executive agency enforcement of federal gun control on made in Kansas and stays in Kansas firearms. I don't know if you all know, but in April, a Republican U.S. Senator pushed back against Trump and said, look, I am not working with you. I am not going to appoint any of your appointments to your departments if you allow Sessions to come in here and arrest people in Colorado on marijuana. Because our state voted in and voted for marijuana, and it's a states' rights issue. Trump agreed with him, said that on the basis of states' rights and federalism that he is making a states' rights agreement, that will not happen. His executive agencies will not go into Colorado and mess with them. Well, that's one state west of here. How about firearms in Kansas? I'm calling Trump to do the same thing here. I have talked to Chris Kobach, I've talked to other people about this to get Trump on this. It's a win-win for everyone, and it's something that needs to be done. Made in Kansas firearms should be hands off of federal gun control. The only thing that should happen when the feds, ban bump stocks is loud laughter from the state of Kansas. I'm calling on President Trump to fully pardon Shane Cox and Jeremy Kettler, as has been requested multiple sources over the last years, including the recent Kansas Republican Party resolution. He's pardoning a lot of people, but maybe we should pardon some regular citizens and not just celebrities. Trump's doing a good job. I'm glad he's taking care of some of these wrongs from the Obama administration, but he could spend every day in office figuring out those wrongs and trying to correct them. I hope he does. Sheriff Richard Mack has a great list that he needs to look at, so I'm hoping that will happen. I'm calling on Governor Colyer, every candidate for governor, our Kansas legislature, to contact President Trump today to support our state's rights and federalism by signing a states' rights agreement on the Kansas Second Amendment Protection Act. The number one job of anyone that serves in government is to defend the rights of the citizens they serve. That is clearly outlined. In the Declaration of Independence. Governor Brownback wrote a great letter back to Eric Holder back in 2013 after we passed the Second Amendment Protection Act. It said, the right to keep and bear arms is a right that Kansans hold dear. It is a right enshrined not only in the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, but also protected by the Bill of Rights, the Kansas Bill of Rights. The people of Kansas have repeatedly and overwhelmingly affirmed their commitment to protecting this fundamental right. The people of Kansas are likewise committed to defending the sovereignty of the state of Kansas as guaranteed in the 9th and 10th Amendments to the United States Constitution. The people of Kansas have clearly expressed their sovereign will. That's a great letter. But boy, we sure have to enforce that today. Secretary of State Kobach expressed many of the same comments in his own response to Eric Holder in 2013. The state of Kansas stands firmly on principles laid out in the United States Constitution, and the Second Amendment Protection Act is fully supportive of the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment limited scope of interstate commerce clause. The abuse cannot continue. The state of Kansas is determined to restore the Constitution and protect the rights of its citizens to keep and bear arms. It is time to stand up publicly today and defend the rights of the citizens of this state and to interpose between them and the federal government seeking to infringe upon the citizens' rights to bear arms with made in Kansas firearms and accessories under the Second Amendment Protection Act. The federal government has no business messing in our right to bear arms in Kansas. Yeah! The abuse cannot continue. That is why today we call on Governor Colyer, every candidate for governor in Kansas, every Kansas legislator must stand up and defend the rights of the citizens they serve. I am so glad there's so many here today standing up with us. That is great. But we have to change the narrative. When they're talking about repealing the Second Amendment, I love Austin Peterson out of Missouri. He says, well, no, we need to completely deregulate, legalize machine guns. That needs to happen. Shall not be infringed means what it means. And we need to stand up and enforce duly passed and signed law, the Second Amendment Protection Act. Finally, I want to finish with this. One of the key authors of the Bill of Rights and the Second Amendment, George Mason, gave these important words as a reminder. I ask, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people, except for a few public officials. To disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Our founders gave us a solution to execute the laws of the Union, and we failed in our service and duty to do it. It's time that we get busy and do that. Contact us. We are doing that today, and we need help from the state to make that possible. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rob. What a great speech. There's so much information there. You know, we just need to make sure that we're acting on it and doing everything we can to protect our Constitution. All right, so next up is a high school student from Wichita South High, and he is a patriot at heart. He's a strong Second Amendment supporter and can't wait to be able to vote in this midterm election where his voice will count. Kansas Rallies would like to welcome Stout to the mic. Let's get up and up for Ian.
I don't have as much as the other guy, but throughout the ages, citizens have always been able to have the right to bear arms, even during the Roman age, throughout all the ages. So why should this come into question now? Democrats are trying to abolish this constitutional right. We the people must keep our constitutional rights, because if one right is taken away, then who's to say that any of the other rights given to the people won't be taken away? We the people should not have to come to these rallies to fight for our constitutional rights. But if our rights were given to us by our founding fathers, then we must rally. We must counter the movement against guns. I know that if more and more people begin to rise up and join the movement for guns and fight for our constitutional rights, then America will stay the greatest country in the world. I know that my speech isn't the longest or maybe the best, but I hope it will help the cause to keep our rights to bear arms, and I will be voting in the midterms, and I hope you guys do too.
I can only hope that all of the high school students out there have as much passion and heart as Ian does, because it is so important that we talk to the youth and get them involved in what's going on as well. All right, our next speaker is John Whitmer, and him and his wife, Marlena, have lived in Sedgwick County for over 30 years. And he is proud of his family's Kansas roots, which date back to the late 1800s. He pursued a bachelor's degree at the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, go KU, where he studied political science and public administration. John has been in event planning, sales, and the marketing industry for over 30 years. In 2008, John was recognized by the Wichita Business Journal as one of Wichita's 40 under 40 honorees for his work on special events industry. John, Marlena, and their daughter Melissa own a small business here in Wichita, and he has been involved in multiple local and national political campaigns, including senatorial and presidential campaigns. He has also been very involved in the local Republican Party, serving as precinct committeeman and graduating from the inaugural Kansas Republican Men's Leadership Series. John has served on the City of Wichita's District 4 Advisory Board and the Wichita Crime Commission. In 2012, he was appointed by Governor Sam Brownback to serve as chairman of the Kansas Commission on Peace Officers Standards and Training, and was reappointed again in 2016. In September of 2014, John was elected to the Kansas House of Representatives. He currently serves on the House Judiciary, Energy and Environment, and Health and Human Services Committees. John and Marlena are also very active volunteers in the Wichita community and are very passionate about their public service. He's also has been endorsed by the NRA and KSRA for his support of the Second Amendment and has a national A rating. So please give a warm welcome to John Whitmer, a representative in the Kansas House of Representatives.
Woo! Wow, she took that and went the whole way on that bio. Holy cow, I thought she'd take like 2 sentences out of there. So, for those of you who don't know, I represent the 93rd District, which is basically all of southwest Sedgwick County. I have a little bit of Goddard, I have a little bit of West Wichita, all of Cheney, Clearwater, Viola, and the south half of Hayesville. So it's a very conservative district. My district, Trump won my district by 51 points. I have 52% registered Republicans, 30% of them are libertarians, and those folks pretty much are pro-life, pro-gun, get off my porch folks. And I got 18% Democrats. All that being said, she asked that I address some things about the legislative session this year and about the elections coming up, and I'll give you just some basics. I spent 4 hours on the House floor this year trying to get reciprocity passed. It's pretty simple. How many know what reciprocity is? It's pretty straightforward. Allows Kansans to enjoy their Second Amendment rights when they visit other states and likewise. 4 hours, it failed. They tried 8 separate times to repeal campus carry, to repeal college carry, to repeal your concealed carry rights. All of this is, we lost some of those votes and won some of those votes 59 to 59. So you have to be aware of how narrow the margin is right now in the Kansas House of Representatives. We can't pass pro-gun legislation. We can't pass constitutional amendments. We can't pass because elections have consequences, and we have too many of my colleagues who are, well, we'll just say they're not really Republicans. They don't embrace the party platform. Speaking of the elections, you've got a few issues coming up this year. We have some great primaries, and first off, let me point out, Leo Delperdang, who's another state representative, is here today. We have a lot of primaries. There have been folks who have worked behind the scenes for a long time to find good candidates for these races. Get out. I know you're here today, and I appreciate that you're being here, and thank you for being here, but you know what? We need help. Write a check. Go door knock. Go volunteer. Walk in a parade. Make phone calls. Because this margin of error is so thin, you have no idea how close you are to losing your Second Amendment rights, having them repealed, having them curtailed, if we don't elect the right governor. Had to check to Linc Hartman and Chris Kobach right there. The right governor and the right members of the Kansas House. It's a key election cycle. I know everybody says every time this is a very important election, or this is the most important election. Folks, if we want to get anything conservative, pro-gun, pro-life, low tax, passed out of the Kansas House of Representatives, you have got to make sure we elect conservatives to the Kansas House this year. Thank you again for coming out. If you have questions, I'll be here, and just feel free to come up and ask. But thank you. Get out, door knock, write a check, please.
Thank you so much, John. We appreciate what you have to say. All right, it's such an important matter that we're talking about today. So Linc Hartman is a candidate for lieutenant governor. He's running with gubernatorial candidate Chris Kobach. He is a local businessman who has provided Kansans with jobs for years and years. He was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, and graduated from Wichita State University, go Shockers, with a business degree, double majoring in marketing and economics. He had a variety of positions from oil field work to house painting, advertising sales, to vehicle repossessing and more. While working for Xerox in the mid-70s, he built speculative houses for additional income. In 1980, Hartman Homes became partner with Tallgrass Country Club Development. In 1990, Linc returned to the oil business and purchased Hartman Oil Company from his father, Ralph Hartman. Linc presently owns and oversees a variety of companies, many of which I'm sure you'll recognize, including the Hartman Arena, Jimmy's Egg, Nola's Pizza, and such amazing businesses. So with the recent acquisition of additional oil companies, Hartman Oil has become one of the largest independent oil producers in Kansas, and that's saying something. Linc was named 2008 Businessman of the Year by Wichita Business Journal, so please welcome Linc Hartman. Yay! Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, John, where are you? Did you hear my opening part here?
Yeah, it was shorter.
Wow. The way I heard it, it was much longer and much more detailed on the facts. Everybody, thank you so much for allowing me to spend a few minutes sharing some thoughts and ideas. First of all, though, I would be remiss. You need to, as soon as you can, I know you all have phones, so after I get done speaking, get on your phones, chriskobach.com. We will have Ted Nugent in Kansas City, Lenexa, June 23rd, because he is endorsing the Kobach campaign. And I also hear another rumor, which I guess I'm not eligible. They're having a drawing or some type of raffle or some legal situation where you might be able to obtain a gun that Ted Nugent has personally signed. So bid big, bid heavy, buy tickets, whatever we have to do, and then come and see me. Because I'd like to have that, but I'm not eligible. But really, that's it.
We'll take you shooting if we win.
Dakota, write that down. I have an offer here. Seriously, let me share a few thoughts. We're here today for a very, very special occasion because we, the people of Kansas and this great nation, under the United States Constitution, have the right to bear arms, period. I have read the Constitution, especially the First and Second Amendment, many times, as I'm sure all of you here have. No disrespect to the Founding Fathers, but I always kind of thought, why didn't they put the First Amendment, instead of free speech and liberty, put the right to bear arms first? Because that right to bear arms is what protects us to have the First Amendment to start with, to have the freedom of speech, to have the freedom of religion. Without the right to bear arms, without the right to protect ourselves and our families, and stand up for our basic rights as human beings, the Second Amendment cannot and should not, and under a Kobach Hartman administration, will not be breached in this state. My concern, and Chris and I have spoken, hours and hours as we've been on the campaign bus. We've had a lot of time together to discuss a lot of things. Our concern is like the little boy that put his finger in the dam, in the dike, to put his finger in the hole so the dam would not burst. I am so concerned, like John so perfectly stated, if we do not elect at the Senate and legislative level, if we do not protect the conservative views and values in this state, in this upcoming election, there is going to be multiple attempts to take your rights away from you, one piece at a time. Thank you. But it is very, very serious. If we check our history over hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of years, the fall of a nation, the fall of a people, a free people, starts when you slowly but surely nip away at their rights. Pretty soon it will not be constitutional carry. Maybe that goes out the window. What's next? Carry a gun even though you may have a permit? That could be next. Bump stocks, that's on the table now. And that will be back in the legislature this coming year. Campus carry, that will be back up in the legislature, and John will deal with that once again. So please, please, it is so important. We have taken religion out of schools. We have taken the Pledge of Allegiance out of schools. And unfortunately, if you've read the newspaper, the great USD 259 in this city, this very city where you pay your taxes, have thrown away hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books in the dippy dumpster. Now, let's quickly review what they threw away. Well, they threw away books that is entitled The Animals of Africa. They threw it in the trash. Well, I have some knowledge, and I will venture to tell you that the animals of Africa did not change in the last 10 years or the last 100 years. But yet that book was of zero value. They took your tax dollars and threw it in the trash. But they also threw other books in the trash. And notable most important among those books thrown in that dippy dumpster were books on the Constitution of the United States of America in the trash. Unfortunately, I'm just repeating the facts of what was taking place. The school board quickly tried to cover up their egregious error, but this is part of what I'm explaining with the Second Amendment. They threw it in the trash. Well, I can assure you, I can stand here and promise you, if we as a group, we as a state, and we as a nation do not and are unwilling to stand up for our rights on an hourly, not a daily, an hourly basis, every place, at home, at school, in the workplace, at the grocery store, your choice of religion, we have to stand arm in arm, hand in hand, or we will slowly but surely lose that precious right to defend ourselves and our family with a gun of your choice. Thank you so much for letting me participate. God bless you all.
Thank you, Wing, so much for speaking today. And I promise if I win that gun, I'm taking you shooting. All right. So our next up is our candidate for Secretary of State, Keith Esau. He is a fourth-generation Kansan that grew up in Buhler, a central Kansas town near Hutchinson, and graduated from Buhler High School. He then graduated from Tabor College in Hillsboro with a Bachelor of Arts in Music. Keith and his lovely wife, Charlotte, live in Olathe, and they have 5 grown children and 4 young grandchildren. After college, Keith was ambitious and started his own software company. In 1988, he sold his software rights to a Lenexa company and moved to Olathe to work for that company. In 2002, he began telecommuting, working for a company in California that purchased development rights to the software that Keith helped develop, while he continued to live here in Kansas because he loves it here so much. For the last 6 years, Keith has served as the state representative for House District 14 and has a perfect attendance and voting record during his tenure. Now that's something to speak for. He is proud to have an A rating with the NRA for his service in the House and has had their endorsement each time he has run for office. In 2015 and 2016, Keith served as the vice chair of the House Elections Committee, and starting in 2017, he has served as the chair of the Elections Committee. He also served on the Joint Committee for Information Technology for the last 6 years, and also serves on the new House Government Technology and Security Committee. Kansas Rallies would like to welcome Keith Esau. Welcome, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, you're hearing a lot of speeches today, so I'll keep my remarks short and sweet. And I want to thank you all for coming to this event. Securing our elections are key to preserving our constitutional rights, including our Second Amendment rights. Your vote is your strongest weapon to defend your right to keep and bear arms, your rights to preserve our freedom of speech, and keep an intrusive government from trampling on our rights. If we allow illegal aliens, convicted felons, and people from outside of Kansas to vote in our elections, then to swing our elections, our most fundamental rights are in jeopardy. Thank you. I have written and defended many of our ballot security laws, including requiring paper ballots records on new machines, and as Secretary of State, I will stand firm to enforce these laws and to ensure your vote carries its maximum firepower. As she said, I have an A rating with the NRA. I've also been recognized by the American Conservative Union for conservative excellence and conservative achievement. Join with me in defending our constitutional rights on August 7 by voting for me, Keith Esau, for Secretary of State, and for all the good conservative candidates that support the Second Amendment. Thank you for your time and for supporting the Second Amendment.
Thank you so much, Keith. We appreciate you being here today. Now we're just going to have a quick message from Melissa with Kansas Rallies.
How you guys doing? Great. Thank you guys for coming out here. I really do appreciate it. I'm wanting my friends and Congress District 4 to know something. Liberal Ron M. Estes has registered as a Republican to run against Congress Ron Estes. Pay attention and be sure you know who you're voting for in the primary. The imposter will be listed as Ron M. Estes, and the real conservative will be listed as Rep. Ron Estes. Ron Estes is challenging U.S. Rep. Ron Estes in the Republican primary in Kansas, 4th District, after the non-elected Ron M. Estes, who lives in Wichita, filed to run against Rep. Estes in the Republican primary. Sorry, guys. Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach said Friday that both men are allowed to use a prefix or a suffix next to their name. Kobach's office later tweeted that congressmen would appear on the ballot as Rep. Ron Estes. But other hallmarks of a typical campaign were missing. The news release contained no contact information other than a campaign email. A message was sent to the address bounced back. A search of Federal Election Commission returned only records for Rep. Ron Estes. And calls to a phone number listed for online for Ron M. Estes were not returned. Rep. Estes' campaign is calling other Estes' campaign a candidacy in an attempt to deceive voters. Campaign finance records show that the unelected Estes previously donated to Democrat Paul Davis in 2013. On Friday, Rep. Estes' campaign sent out a fundraising email attacking the other Estes, saying the M in the middle name stands for misleading. The imposter game is even worse than I thought. His logo looks like Congressman Estes' logo. His tagline is, "The real Ron Estes." What? We need to get the word out that the real is not right. The newcomer is running a campaign that says real Ron Estes. Don't be misled. This man has supported the Democratic candidate and can appear misleading to mislead the voters. But we won't let this happen. This is clearly an attempt to deceive Kansas voters, said Rep. Ron Estes spokesman Josh Bell. Kansans know that Congressman Ron Estes is fighting for them in Washington. Rep. Ron Estes looks forward to discussing with voters how to keep that positive economic momentum going. It's starting to have a big impact for Kansas families. So remember that in the primaries. Rep. Ron Estes is the real Ron Estes.
Thank you, Melissa. How scary is that? Is that not scary that a Democrat can switch parties with the same name as our representative? That just doesn't seem right, does it? No. It makes me wonder how many other states across the country have duplicate names running for the same office. They're really Democrats, but they're trying to run as Republicans. That is just scary. So on August 7th, let's make sure that our voices are heard and that we vote for Representative Ron Estes. All right. Thank you so much. Jeff Colyer is the 5th generation Kansan dedicated to making a difference in people's lives. Over the last 25 years, Dr. Colyer has volunteered as a surgeon in dangerous war zones across the world and through the International Medical Corps. He also served as a White House Fellow under President Ronald Reagan and President George H.W. Bush in the international affairs. Governor Colyer and his wife Ruth have been married since 1991 and have 3 beautiful daughters. He strongly advocates for making Kansas a place where our children see their future through job development and economic growth. He is a lifelong supporter of the Second Amendment from his time in the state legislature to lieutenant governor to now as governor. He is an advocate for protecting the Second Amendment as a basic constitutional right. So Kansas Rallies would love to welcome Jeff Colyer to the stage.
Hey, it's great to be here with friends and to celebrate something that is truly foundational to the United States of America. You know, everybody who's involved in construction, everybody knows what a load-bearing wall is. And you don't mess with load-bearing walls. And I'll tell you what, we all know that foundationally to the United States, to our fundamental freedoms, that the Second Amendment is that load-bearing wall. I worked for President Reagan, we knew, every American knew, how important our Constitution is, and how important it is that we respect our Constitution and that we, as Americans, exercise our rights. And one of those fundamental rights is the Second Amendment. And that Second Amendment is something that is so important for all of us, and is so important for all of our kids. And I'm really excited to see all of the young people that are here today with us. Because we all believe and we know that this is important for our kids. So, as Commander-in-Chief of the Kansas National Guard, I just had to send off 800 of our young men and women off to the Middle East. They're going to Syria, they're going to Iraq, they're going to Lebanon, they're around the world in some of the most dangerous places. And there are some people that believe that those young people who are willing to put their life on the line for us, that they cannot have the right to a firearm to protect them and their families in the United States. Is that right or is it wrong?
So wrong.
So we need to stand up, and we will. And this governor will stand with the Second Amendment, as all of us understand it today.
We're counting on it.
You bet, and I'm there. So I want you to continue. Go out, educate people, talk about it. Be sure to let people know how important this is, because our fundamental rights are what are really so important to the future of our kids. You know, I've had a lot of fun here in the last 120 days. It has been a true honor to be your governor. And I look forward to continue to working with you, because I understand how important constitutional carry is. It is important for protection, not only for me as a governor and having that right to constitutional carry, but that is foundational for every single Kansan. And I thank you for fighting so hard to get that passed over the last few years, and we're going to continue to protect that right.
Thank you.
So today is a great day to celebrate. And thank you for your courage. Thank you for your belief in America and belief in that load-bearing wall that supports all of us. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
All right, so our next speaker is Jeffrey Locke. He's running for District 124. He's a constitutional conservative and a lifetime endowed member of the NRA, and his opponent has not stood up or spoken out for the Second Amendment at all. So we are excited to hear from Jeffrey Locke.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks for everything you do. Just a little thing you ought to know about. There are over 20,000 federal, state, county, incorporated, city, and such laws, all designed to infringe upon your Second Amendment, because they just don't get it. I will not blame a pencil for a misspelled word. Okay? Hate pulls the trigger of the guns that hurt the innocent people. Hate pulls that trigger. And what stops a person with hate in their heart is a person with a gun and the righteous, stellar, God-given right that says, I value all life.
Yes.
Now, I'm running. Yes. And I'm asking for your prayers, because I have an opponent whose claim to fame that said, all he said was, I'm a county commissioner and I already can talk to the legislators. He has spoken to nothing, just says there's a lot of problems. Oh boy. But I come out right, straightforward. I'm pro-life, I'm a constitutional conservative, and I'm a lifetime endowed member of the NRA, because when we had issues of getting money in some elections that were coming up, especially like with this Hillary, I upped the ante and put my money where my mouth was, because that money will push it where we need to, because we got to have a voice. And I'm going to say this. If you come out to vote, that's great, but we do need donations of time. We need donations of prayer. We need donations of all kinds, because some people just want to get in there because it's a place to spend your money and hold the power of the purse, and that's all they see it for. We need to stand for the right to bear arms, because 20,000 laws on the books have continued to try to erode that law bit by bit. And they either can come after it in a little bit at a time and just eat that elephant just one bite at a time, or they can come after it and say we want to repeal the Second Amendment. And they won't do that until they have 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 attempts at the federal, state, county, city, on the books, trying to go after that greased pig. That greased pig that is hate. Hate pulling the trigger. And every time it happens, law-abiding citizens cringe, because we are lumped in, stereotyped as being some sort of violent person. We're not violent. We just want to defend ourselves. We just want to have that ability to fight back. In nature, the gazelle has horns and hooves. Why does the gazelle have horns and hooves? Because they are the prey for the leopard, who has claws and fangs. It is a natural condition to say, I understand there's evil in the world, and I must stand against it. And I will stand with you, and I thank you for your time. My name is Jeff Locke. You don't need to lock and load, just vote for Locke. And you'll be able to lock and load whenever you need to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it. All right, well, we have heard some amazing speakers today, haven't we? Let's give it up for our speakers. Yeah. Is there anyone that would like to say a few words before we close it up? Anyone? All right. Well, thank you all for traveling from throughout the state to come and speak with us today, and for those of you that came to attend to listen. As we prepare to march for the Second Amendment, I want to take a quick moment to talk with you about what we can do to support our Second Amendment and the fight to keep our constitutional republic. To start, we need to contact our representatives regularly. Several of them have been here today. Speak with them, engage with them, tell them what you think. We need to let them know what we want. The loudest mouths get fed. And, right now they have people shouting from the rooftops, and we need to do the same. We need to be as vocal about the importance of the Bill of Rights is, and how the Second Amendment is the cornerstone for keeping our God-given rights. That a free and civilized people have the right to defend themselves. Please pull out your phones now, take some pictures, add Kansas Rallies to your Facebook page, post those with the hashtag Kansas Rallies. We'd love to be able to share your photos and your videos with everyone on Facebook, and this will allow us to keep track of the rallies that's going on around the state. We need to get involved. Join groups on Facebook with like-minded individuals. If you search Patriots, 3%, or Second Amendment, or any of those key phrases, you'll find several groups to join, and you can learn and share information with each other. Next, join a militia. How many of you are currently involved in the militia? Yeah, it is so much fun, let me tell you. It's a great time. If you're able, it's an amazing experience. You join up with other like-minded individuals from across the state. It's a great way to make amazing friends for life and train for any kind of disaster that this country could face. We are hoping to get the militias more active in this state, and we need people that have the drive to learn and that get along well with others. If this is you and you would like more information about different groups or contacts in your area, get with me after the program. I'd be happy to share the ones that I have. Next, let me know if you guys agree with this with a big cheer, but we need to buy more guns! Yeah! More guns, right? This one's my favorite. Any excuse, right guys? Anything we can do, I love it. Support gun manufacturers, sellers, shops, stores, ranges. Support them all with your dollars.
Local guns.
The local guys, absolutely. Make sure you train with those guns. That's very important. Take classes, practice. Take others with you, especially kids. Take friends with you to the range that haven't been shooting before. Teach them that those scary guns aren't so scary, but they're actually really fun. You know, people fear what they don't understand, so let's help them. Teach them how to handle a firearm safely. Show them how much fun and how exhilarating firing a gun can be, especially the AR-15, I might add. Woo, that's so much fun. Kids especially need to be trained on firearm safety, especially if you have guns in your home. Accidents can happen in the blink of an eye, but they are more likely to happen if the person involved does not know what they're doing. If a trained individual, child or adult, will handle a firearm with care, they are less likely to have an accidental discharge. Next, let's show off those new guns we've trained on by open carrying more often. Yeah, absolutely. We need to make guns more prevalent. I like open carrying my firearm. I want criminals to know that I am not an easy or soft target. I often open carry in stores, around town, and while I'm just out and about. And sometimes people ask me why I carry a gun, and I say, because I can! Woo! All right, well, kids will ooh and ah, and they'll ask if I'm a police officer, and I can say no, but I will protect you if a bad person comes in and tries to hurt you. I tell them that it's important to get proper training and to practice often. How many of you guys regularly open carry? Yeah, I want to see more hands up next time we have a rally, okay? All right, for those of you that don't, do you at least conceal carry? Yes? All right, we need to make sure that we're using our rights. And that's awesome. Keep it up and do it more. All right. You have to keep going to rallies like the one today. Let's give it up for Kansas Rallies, who is the organizer of this event. Thank you so much for being here. We believe in the Constitution and the rights that are guaranteed by those documents. We will not surrender. We will not give up. The fight is always going on, and so shall we. Shall not be infringed. Yeah. To keep up to date on all of our rallies, join our page on Facebook at Kansas Rallies. And lastly, we need to vote. We need conservatives that will support the president's agenda of securing our borders and protecting our Constitution. Yes. We need to have that blue wave that everybody keeps talking about. Hit that Trump red wall! All right, we need to evaluate our elected officials and determine if they're serving our best interests or their own. Where our voices need to be heard. Did you know that you can pre-register to vote as early as 16, and that way when you turn 18, you don't have to do anything, you can just show up and vote? So we need to really work on getting our high school students registered to vote as Republicans, preferably. You know, someone that's going to be conservative and support the Constitution. If you would like more information about groups you can join or get involved in, militias in the area, or you just want to chat about the Second Amendment, feel free to comment and come and see me after the rally or any of us. And we want to say thank you so much for being here. We're going to start marching. We have to march 4 blocks, so we'll be going down, I believe, south on Main Street and around. So we'll get ready. So grab your flags and let's march for our Second Amendment. Thank you all for being here.